And we will get started. Well, thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. If you're like me, I know I said this to the chamber staff this week, is when this all started, it felt really weird to stay home, and now it feels really weird to go out. And as we start navigating how that looks for your businesses, we felt this was the perfect time to kind of bring some local experts together that have been maybe on the forefront of planning to help you guys with some strategies for your business. So just a few housekeeping items. I know we're all getting very familiar with Zoom, but down on the bottom, you will have a black bar that will pop up, or maybe it's kind of grayish. If you see a red slash through your microphone, that means you are on mute. We are asking you to leave yourselves on mute at this time. And if you have questions, we'll be utilizing the chat option. So please feel free to type your questions in there, and we will address those with the speakers. We do encourage you also to turn your video on to help with engagement during the presentation. It always helps to know that you're talking to people rather than just to a computer screen. Also, if you have AirPods in, we've noticed that sometimes the quality of those, the sound quality maybe isn't top-notch all the time. So if you're having some issues, you might want to try dialing in a different way. Same thing with a slow internet connection. If you move closer to your router, sometimes that will help you. So as I said, please feel free to drop your questions into chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout and can ask those questions for you to our speakers during the presentation. So with that, I'm going to flip and introduce you guys to our speakers today. So as I said, there's a lot to consider with reopening your businesses. So we are really fortunate to have this group of people joining us on our call today. If you'd like to stay for the whole meeting, obviously we would love that. If you need to jump on and off for the parts that are appropriate for your business, please feel free to do that as well. I am recording the session, so we will post this on the Chamber's YouTube page after the meeting closes today, so that you can reference it back or share it with colleagues or other people in your industry that may benefit. So with that, I'm going to kind of let each speaker introduce themselves, and we are going to roll right into Corey. So Corey is the general manager of Red Development, which is the Greenway Station property and shopping center. And she is also joined by Patty, who is a store manager at one of the shops there in Greenway Station. So Corey, at this time, I'd love to turn it over to you, just kind of to roll through some of these top questions or anything you'd like to share with the group. I'm going to unmute. There we go. All right, sorry for the technical difficulties. Hold on 1 second, guys, sorry. Oh, she's on. Hey, Corey, is anyone else having trouble hearing? You guys can chat me.
Yes.
Right. Okay, hold on.
Is anybody there?
Yeah, I'm still
Yep,
here.
we're here.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Looks
No,
like
that's okay. I think I had it on mute and all that stuff, so I didn't know if it was. Thanks.
Yep, looks like Corey's trying to dial in by phone, so we're just gonna give her 1 sec here. Sorry about the technical difficulty.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
There you are. Hi.
Hi, sorry about that. Let me get my computer audio off here. I'm not sure why the computer audio isn't working, but y'all can hear me?
We are good.
Great. Well, good morning. Thank you again for having myself and Patty. Just a little bit about us. I have served in management and marketing here at Greenway Station for the past 15 years. And Patty has been with our Pendleton store for the last 16 years, both while it was at Hilldale as well as here at Greenway Station. So we're both really excited to talk to you guys about the topic of reopening and hopefully some safe ways to go about doing that. Let me first begin by saying that this topic is very fluid and will continue to be so. So I think those retailers that are going to be successful in this market are going to be able to adapt to change and be ready to adjust their planning on a continual basis. So diving right into these bullet points on our slideshow, when is the right time to reopen? I think with, as most things these days, when it comes to opening, it will be a process. And as I understand it, there's going to be 2 key metrics to a successful opening. And the first one obviously being government guidelines. I wasn't sure how much each of you were aware of the most recent Dane Forward plan that was rolled out this past Monday. But if your business is located here in Dane County, I highly suggest reviewing that carefully to see how it will apply to each of your businesses. And that can be found at publichealthmdc.com. The second and maybe more important aspect of reopening is really when you feel you'll be able to provide a safe and positive experience both for your staff as well as your customers. So I think, making sure that you're promoting what you guys will be doing for the safety measures, whether it's signage at your store or on social media, websites, things like that is going to be key in informing people that A, that you're open, and B, that you are taking different measures to ensure their safety. One other resource I just wanted to mention was the International Council of Shopping Centers. They have been kind of monitoring this outbreak for the retail real estate industry for the past several weeks. And if you go to icsc.org, they have a COVID-19 reopening best practices manual. This is both for retailers as well as landlords. So that will address many of the topics a little bit more in depth than what we're going to talk about today in terms of best practices for signage, communication, some marketing. And so I think that can really apply to all retailers. The second portion of this question, when will people come? I think that is a question that's yet to be found out. I think the first thing we should all look at, though, is our core customer, and I think each of you guys know your business best. And so there's a number of things that you can do just to get creative in trying to understand when your customer will be ready to come back. Simple things are just focusing on quality versus quantity. So kind of taking a look at your key demographic, key audience, and perhaps you do a survey or questions on your social media page. Maybe, are you excited for me to open? What are some things that I could do to ensure you have a positive visit or feel safe? Maybe you could do a fun post of showing your staff doing some extra cleaning measures, post that on social media. Other things you can do is, if you have the ability to actually talk about this, call some of your key customers and invite them to do a personal shopping appointment. Maybe that's before or after hours or during a time that you feel is slower during the day. Another thing you can do is look at, and you probably heard a lot of retailers doing special hours for folks who feel they're a little bit more higher risk for COVID, whether that's your first hour of business or a different time during the day. And so I really think the bottom line to answering when people will come is as they feel safe they'll start to come back out and we'll see more success. And so that key, like I said, is ensuring that you're communicating all the plans that you have in place, communicating alternate hours if you have those, and promoting what you guys are actually doing. So with that, moving on to revamping store setup and suggested signage. Patty had opened her store last Thursday, and so she's kind of started these efforts, and so I wanted to turn it over to her to be able to give you some ideas on that.
Hi, everyone. Again, I work for Pendleton, and I had not been laid off the entire time when I was working there. So the nice thing about that was that I was able to maintain safety and cleaning measures during the entire time. So when we get the call to actually open up, I was able to receive the safety and sanitation measures that we were to have in line in order to open up the store. So when we got the call that we could open early, earlier than the 26th, it wasn't a problem at all, you know, to have these safety measures in place. So one thing that our corporate office did for us is that they actually had, you know, stand here signs for us to make sure that actually in front of the cash register, it was actually 1 foot in front of the cash register. They're debating whether or not we're going to actually put a plexiglass in front of it because we are a retail clothing store. So it's a little, we're not sure if it's going to be worth, because you have to actually handle the clothes, fold the clothes, and then put it in a bag, and then the bag isn't necessarily going to fit underneath the plexiglass, things like that. So they're deciding whether or not that's going to be something we're going to implement or not. And then measuring from that stand here point, 1 foot away from the cash register area, 6 feet, different areas, 6 feet, and mapping that out in your store in an area that is not going to be interfering with your traffic flow. So starting from the front door, we have a sign on our front door that shows temporary hours. We are doing 11 to 5, Monday through Saturday, and then noon to 4 on Sundays. We also have a sign on our front door explaining to them the extra safety precautions we are taking into our store. We have a table directly inside our door that has a sign that says that they must use hand sanitizer upon entering the store, and that is we will always have 2 people in our store at one time, so that one person can actually monitor and explain to the customers our safety measures that we're using in our store, and make sure that people do actually use hand sanitizer upon entry. Once somebody actually, one thing that we're actually doing upon that too is that once somebody actually comes into our store, we are actually using Clorox wipes, and we actually go back and we wipe the handle down as soon as they walk into the store so that they can see that we're taking those measures into our own hands so that every person feels and sees what we're actually doing in our store. We do not have flow patterns in our store. Our store is actually quite open. It's not very congested at this time, being second quarter right now, so they are free to, you know, work amongst themselves. We have masks and we have gloves. We feel for the safety of ourselves, we are wearing masks in our store and we are wearing gloves. Now, it's not mandated in Dane County that you have to do that. We do have a sign if it does get to that point that we can mandate that for our doors. We also have, our fitting rooms are closed. We are not allowing people to try on clothes in our fitting rooms. And that's just a reason for, we can monitor, we can't really monitor how much they're going to take in there. And then that's taking more clothes off of our floor, because once it goes in, if it goes into the fitting room, then it has to be taken off and actually be quarantined for 7 days. And that's something that we just didn't want to do. So people are more than welcome to take the merchandise home when we are taking returns. But if they do want to return it, then it gets taken off our floor and put in the back room for 7 days of quarantine. And then at the cash wrap, we just have that they hand us the credit card. When they hand us the credit card, the extra safety measures that we do is when they hand us the credit card, they, you know, we are actually wiping the credit card down before we put it in the credit card machine, and then we wipe it back before we hand it back to them, and then we wipe down the credit card machine as soon as we're done with it, and we wipe down the pen before we give it to them, and then we wipe down the pen again once they put it down. And these are all done in front of them so that the customer can actually see how we're taking extra precautions in front of them, because I don't know if you've ever shopped in a store and you haven't really seen any precautions being done, how you felt. And I didn't really feel very good about that, so I'm just kind of taking these extra measures into my own hands and everything. And we are doing, like I said, we are doing returns, and we did extend our return policy for anything that was purchased between January 1st and March 16th. We're extending that return policy till July. So I don't know if there was any other signage. Do you remember?
I think that covers it.
Yeah.
We had one question that popped up just about the merchandise. If something is returned, are there requirements on how it is packaged and given back to you? Like, what is the
Yeah, the other thing too is that if somebody brings in their own bag, because there's a lot of people who like to use their own bag, they have to put the clothing in their own bag. We don't touch the bags or anything like that. But yeah, if somebody brings something back, they have to put well, again, we're wearing our own gloves, so they have to take it out of the bag and then hand it to us, and then we put it on the hangers, and then we put it in the back room.
Okay. And then any precautions that you're taking for, I know you said the fitting rooms are closed, but people that are touching merchandise in the store but don't purchase it, are you guys allowing that, or how are you kind of controlling that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, I guess there's no real safety precaution for that. We can't control that. So.
I will say one of our centers in Nebraska is allowing, one of their stores is allowing fitting rooms, and what they are doing is having people put those clothes back on a rack outside of the fitting rooms, and they're taking that rack, spraying disinfectant on it and putting it in the back room, like Patty said, for a certain number of days and then bringing it back in. So that was one of our local retailers, like I said, in Omaha, Nebraska. So I think each store is slightly handling it differently.
And I think, once with them using the hand sanitizer upon entry into the store, you're kind of eliminating anything by that. If they do touch things, I think you kind of cross that out. We also have, if we have the right, if they don't want to use the hand sanitizer, to ask them again. If they refuse to use it, we have the right to ask them not to enter the store. And that's by our corporate office. If somebody is coughing in our store, we can kind of ask them some questions, and then if they continue to cough, we have the right to ask them to leave the store. And just let them know for the safety of ourselves and of our future customers, we have to ask them to politely leave the store. But again, like I said, I think by using the hand sanitizer upon entry into the store, you've eliminated any kind of risk upon touching the clothes and things like that. So.
Great. Moving on to limiting the number of people in the store and communicating that to your shoppers. One comment I'll just throw out there to everyone is it will be important for you guys to know what your capacity is. Per the current Forward Dane plan, beginning on May 26th, you guys, retailers I should say, are allowed to have up to 25% capacity in their stores. Obviously, if you are not wanting that much, that is an individual decision, but knowing what your capacity levels are will be key in that. Currently, the retailers at Greenway Station who are open are following the guidelines of 5 people in the store at one time. In talking with Patty yesterday, there have been a couple of times since she's opened on last Thursday, that they have had more than 5 folks who wanted to enter the store. And so one thing that we're doing here at Greenway Station is we are putting out social distancing sidewalk graphics so that folks who are standing outside waiting to get in will be able to see kind of what that 6 feet apart distance looks like. And so Patty had just kindly asked those customers to wait until folks were leaving the store for them to enter. So that is kind of how they're handling the current protocol of just 5 people being allowed in the retailer business. Is there any other questions on the number of people that you're allowing?
We do have a couple questions, maybe not specifically about that. One question was, what are the questions you would ask someone who is coughing?
Do you have any questions that you specifically have if they're coughing or appear to have symptoms?
I guess you could probably just politely say, do you need a drink of water for your cough? You know, oh, do you have allergies too? You know, I have allergies right now. You know, so just kind of, you just have to, it's kind of like if you're trying to catch somebody stealing in your store, you know, you have to do these friendly terms, you know, so you just have to be politely about it and be like, oh, you know, would you like a glass of water for your cough? You know, you got an itch in your throat there? You know, and if they're like, no, I've just had this, you know, so you have to kind of judge it that way. No, I just had this, you know, this cough for a while. You know what, then I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, you know, for the safety, you know, and they have to understand. And I mean, and typically in my store, I don't really have an issue with that. You know, but you do have to understand, I mean, like I have allergies, so every now and then I get a dry cough, or a tickle in my throat. And so it's very important that you do ask, you know, oh, did you need a glass of water for that? You know, do you have a tickle in your throat? Do you have allergies? Do you have, you know, you have to kind of think of those things. I haven't had that yet, so I don't know. But yeah, you can't immediately say, oh, I'm sorry, you have a cough, you have to leave my store. That's a bad way, you know, for customer service, you know, to lose a client, and things like that. So I guess it's just kind of, I'd have to come up with a couple different, you know, type of questions, I guess. So, but that would be a good way to start off, is to see if you have a drinking one.
Patty, are you asking customers to wear masks when they're in your store?
We are not. No, it's not required. Every single one of my customers that have come in the store have been wearing a mask. And you know what, you have to really judge your customers too, because I've had, you know, some people who don't think that it's a very big thing at all. And they're very, you know, they don't really care about it. And then you can tell people who are coming into the store and they're afraid to touch your handle, you know, and everything. And so those are the people that you want to make sure that see you constantly cleaning in the store, and you take a little bit extra effort to make them feel more comfortable. You know, like you're following behind them and you're kind of wiping things off behind them, and maybe go that little extra mile. I think I've got a really good cleaning, you know, thing going in my store anyways, but, you know, just kind of really making them feel more comfortable if you can at all possible. You really have to read your customers on this.
Yeah. And then I think you guys mentioned returned items are you know, sent in the back for 7 days. Is that a industry standard? Is that something that you guys developed?
That's a corporate guideline that they've told us that we need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as returns and talking again with several of our centers across the country, it sounds like each retailer is having their own policy. Some of you guys may be familiar with like Target, for example. For a while, they were not accepting returns. I know our Bath & Body Works store here at Greenway Station opened, and they're not yet currently accepting returns. So that's something that if you guys can either post on your social media, your website, your doors, things like that, that people aren't coming with returns and then being let down because they weren't aware that you weren't accepting them. So really think it's up to each retailer to determine what their policy is at this point. And obviously, if you are accepting returns, having some type of way to either quarantine or clean the returned product, and being able to communicate that policy to a tenant or to, to a customer would be key.
So I told you guys this is going to go fast. We've got 5 minutes left before we're going to move on to our next section. So I don't know if there's any final thoughts, Patty and Corey, that you guys have, or any other questions that you guys have for them. Please put them in the chat. We'll try to address them here in the next few minutes.
Sure.
I think one was, what is the retail association you referred to for best practices, Corey?
Sure, it's the International Council of Shopping Centers, or ICSC.org. You go to their website and you type in the search box best practices, you'll see
And are you implementing any new off-hour cleaning protocols or procedures?
Any off hours? I mean, Greenway Station as a whole is, I think, again, each tenant here is doing different measures, and I think in terms of specific systems and opportunities that can happen, we'll definitely defer that to the supply when they get to their portion of this. But certainly wiping down before and after, you know, as Patty said, before and after opening and throughout the day, we're seeing a lot of retailers using that.
And any protocol for cleaning or opening if an employee gets sick? Anything specific you guys have come up with?
We haven't run across that at Greenway. I think what I've heard throughout the industry, again, is obviously once they're aware of that, making sure the store and merchandise have been wiped down and cleared. Past that, in terms of how they're handling people who have been exposed to that worker, I'm not sure what the answer to that is yet.
And is Greenway Station cleaning common areas like benches and outdoor seating?
Yes, we have certainly done that. We have hand sanitizing stations both at our management office and our public area restrooms. Especially if you guys are thinking of doing any type of events, as we're looking to possibly open up our farmers market at Greenway Station, same thing, social distancing, hand sanitizing measures, and hand sanitizing stations will be provided.
Any other questions that pop in? Otherwise, you guys have a couple final thoughts? We would welcome those.
Sure, I guess, like I said at the beginning, I think remaining fluid is going to be a key to getting through this. I would say don't get set on a single plan. If you guys put together a pre-opening plan and you open and that plan doesn't go according to what you thought, definitely continue to adjust that, evolve it, and know that the planning was, was certainly worth it. Also, just want to thank each of you guys, obviously, for participating in this call and for all the efforts you're doing to reopen your businesses and do so safely, both for the benefit of Middleton and the greater Madison area.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks.
Thank you, Patty, too.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we are going to move on to our more of our safety and security considerations with Officer Tom Wilson. He is the Community Awareness Officer with the Middleton Police Department. So he's here to share some thoughts regarding the things here on the screen and any other questions that you guys might have specifically for him. So Tom, if you are on and want to take yourself off mute, we'd love to hear from you.
I should be off mute. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for having me. For those that don't know me, I think you introduced me. Right now, my current assignment is community officer. I've been with Middleton for 17 years. And just like everybody else, this is kind of new for me and our department. I caught the tail end of what you guys previously talked about, and I may just go over, repeat, I'm sure, the same words, but obviously it's recommended now with stuff opening back up. They recommend you wear masks, the social distance. Some businesses are going to institute temperature checks. And we know that these are changing daily, and then next Tuesday, and then phases of opening up. And we're doing our best as a department to try to keep up with everything. But I just wanted to cover a few of the topics here. So every business can set their own requirements, what they want at their business. If you want everybody who enters your business or your restaurant to wear a mask, then that's an option that you can have. So if you have that set as your parameters, and that someone comes in and says, well, I'm not going to wear a mask, or I'm going to come into your store and shop, and you guys have the right as business and owners of whatever the place is to refuse someone's service. Because that's your guidelines, and if they're not going to follow your guidelines, you can politely ask them to leave, explain to them the policy that you guys have in place and the reason behind it. Obviously, we don't want to get into yelling, swearing contests, and obviously, worst case scenario, there have been physical confrontations over that, and we certainly don't want that in any way, shape, or form. But if someone is not going by what your business rules are, you can politely ask them to leave. If they don't leave right away, or they continue to raise a problem with it, that's a case where then you could give us a call, say we're having someone that's, we would like them to leave the store, they're not, or whatever business, and they're not following our guidelines and they're causing a disturbance. That'd be a situation where you could give us a call. And then when it comes down to, occupancy limits, we know, and social distancing, those are changing every day. It's pretty much similar. It's up to the business, obviously, to adhere to the guidelines and whatever business they have to make sure that's the right numbers. And however that's going to be done by the business to make sure that it's the 25% or wherever it's at, it's up to the business owner to make sure that that's being followed, whether that's positioning someone at the door and counting or how that's going to be done. If people just keep coming in and are not, listening to, hey, you can't come in right now, I've got to follow 25%, so I can't let you in. And if people have problems with that again, you have to tell them the reason why it's there and say, we can't let you in right now. And if they just, try to ignore you or your staff, again, politely tell them that they're not welcome anymore and that they need to leave.
No. Okay, thanks.
So.
And Tom, would that be an instance they would use like the non-emergency number for the police department? And could you share what that number would be?
They certainly could. We have our non-emergency number. We have a dispatcher 24 hours a day, depending on the circumstance. Now, if someone's threatening employees, threatening other people, threatening whoever is talking to them, certainly call 911. And then we'll deal with it accordingly. But again, just like we're trying to do, just be polite, explain the reasons and why your particular business is doing what they're doing. I think everybody should know by now. But again, when it comes down, you do have a right to refuse service for people that aren't following your rules. Then another question that's going to come up is, and it comes up to us a lot now with these guidelines, are we going to be actively out there searching out violators as a department? And no, we're not going to be, going business to business to make sure that everything's being followed. However, we do, and we've experienced this since this started, is we are going to get frequent calls as a department saying, someone's violating something here, or someone's violating something there. And if we get complaints, then we do follow up and just look into whoever the complainant is and what the specific complaint is. And if we do find a violation, we'll touch base with the business and just kind of see what's going on, how it got to be where it is. And, and it also, that applies to, private residences, our city parks and stuff like that. We're not out actively looking to get anybody in trouble, to write citations. We just want people to just comply with what's in place. And generally, generally the first time, just a warning to the business or the person or the residents, explaining, what's going on, the reasons for it. Now, if we get repeated calls back to the business that, the capacity is full, they're not doing something to address the problem, and it just continues, we keep coming back, keep getting more complaints, then there's certainly the possibility that we could issue citations, but we don't want to do that. So we're just, hopefully we get compliance from customers, citizens, businesses, and stuff like that. That's what we're looking for on our end. So.
Tom, kind of just along those lines, are there plans to increase police presence around retail or restaurants for safety of businesses and staff and crowd control?
I think that specifically, we always have officers patrolling areas. We're all assigned to beats, and we're going to be keeping an eye on stuff as it slowly reopens for sure. But do we have a specific plan to be there? Not unless we get calls or we see that something's starting to happen or there's starting to be problems in specific areas, and we'll address them accordingly as we see how this progresses.
Perfect. And then do you know the non-emergency number that people can call?
Yes, the non-emergency number is 608-824-7300, 824-7300. And again, that's our non-emergency. We always have a dispatcher. Even if you have just a couple questions, you can always call that number too, and can talk to an officer. Or if you think you're starting to have problems, like, we've got a mass amount of people showing up, it's the crowd starting to get a little upset, and you can ask for presence in the area or something similar, and then we could try to come to that area and just kind of monitor and see what's going on.
So guys, if you guys have any questions for Officer Wilson, please feel free to type them in the chat. And we'd be happy to try to get those answered for you. Anything else you want to share?
No, I think that's everything I have, unless people have questions. And again, can always give our department a call. Again, the non-emergency number is the best. And, we're kind of learning this like everybody else, just different fields, but it's all an adjustment period for all of us.
I think I had one more question pop in here in just a second. Are masks mandated by authority or optional?
Right now in Wisconsin, masks are not mandated by any authorities or here in Dane County. It's recommended, but we have nothing in place that says you have to wear a mask.
Perfect. Well, it doesn't look like we've got any other questions for Lynn. We thank you for taking the time, Officer Wilson, and helping us kind of navigate what we're doing.
Thank you.
Perfect. So now we are going to turn it over to Mike. Mike is the president of City Supply, and his role there is, I guess I will let him explain, but he's here to talk about some sanitation and cleaning and best practices and supplies that you guys might consider during this time. So Mike, if you'd like to take it from here, I'll let you roll.
Thanks, Kristen. So I'm Mike Johnson, owner of City Supply. We're a janitorial supply wholesaler. This kind of, just like you guys, we've had to make a lot of changes and kind of pivoted our business based upon the current situation. So jumping into this here, per our association, a couple of the guidelines or the general best practices that they put out are to set up for social distancing in your location. So that could mean putting the stickers on the ground, putting tape on the ground, putting partitions up, roping off areas, things like that, just to set up for your customers. If you're in an office setting, it could mean moving cubicles, moving desks, spacing things out, restaurants, spacing tables, spacing bar stools, things like that, as far as setting up for the social distancing. And as we all have heard, the 6 feet is what is being recommended. The next is prepare for protection and prevention. So this would be regarding health screenings, proper PPE supplies, having that ready, adding dispensers, whether that's hands-free or sanitizer, pump sanitizer dispensers, adding more of those to your locations and having them out. I'll get more to that here as we move on with the proper supplies, but those are just a few things to consider. Making clean a priority. So cleaning and disinfecting, and those, again, I'll get to that in a little bit, are two different things, but should be done more frequently and should be done using the proper supplies and the proper disinfectants and sanitizing chemicals. Communicate clearly. So this could mean adding signage or excuse me, company-wide emails, things like that, to make sure everybody's on the same page with what you're looking for when they enter your business. So if you have a sign in the front saying, we want everybody to maintain 6 feet distance, we want you to follow this path, arrows on the ground, but just making sure that it's all communicated properly to your employees, and then also your customers or anybody that's entering your building. And then plan for safety supplies. So it's recommended to have a 30-day supply of PPE, sanitizer, soap, things that you are going to need to stay open and to keep everybody healthy and safe. I know there's some questions here, but maybe I'll answer them if I keep going. So the cleaning protocols to implement, there's a difference between cleaning and disinfecting. So you first off want to clean your surface. So that could mean if you have, say, crumbs or stuff on the counter, if you're a restaurant, stuff, you have to clean all that off first before you can disinfect. It's not a one-step process where you're cleaning and disinfecting at the same time. So first off, clean. Second off, disinfect. And when I'm talking about disinfecting and where to disinfect, the important thing is to consider you need to disinfect high touch points. So doorknobs, handles, light switches, phones, keyboards, desktops, chairs, cash registers, and places where there's a lot of hand usage. The credit card machines. Those are the things that need to be disinfected and cleaned more frequently under these conditions. And then the proper supplies to consider and the use of supplies. So when you're looking for disinfectants, if it's alcohol-based disinfectant, it's required to be 60 to 90% alcohol for it to be effective. And so that is something to consider and look at when you are purchasing disinfectants. Another EPA approved disinfectant is something that's called quaternary ammonia. And so if your disinfectant has quaternary ammonia in it, that is also on the EPA's list of approved for effectiveness against COVID-19. The thing you need to know about your disinfectants or what you're using is what the requirements are of that disinfectant to be effective. So for one of the quaternary ammonia disinfectants that we sell, it requires a 2-minute dwell time. So when you spray it on a surface, it has to sit for at least 2 minutes before you wipe it off in order to be effective. And so that's also important to know when you are purchasing your disinfectants, what the dwell time is and what the recommended use is for what you're trying to disinfect against. Some of the things we've been seeing with people that are opening back up, things that they have been purchasing, masks, gloves, face shields, hand sanitizers, disinfectants, soap, antibacterial, antimicrobial, but also just soap. If you clean your hands with a lotion soap and then use a sanitizer after that, you're accomplishing the same thing. And thermometers have been in high demand to test both your employees and customers if you choose. And then the other thing that's becoming obviously bigger is the plastic partitions. And I know Corey earlier had mentioned that they hadn't implemented that yet because of bags and trying to get things around them. But we've all probably, if you've been to the grocery store, you've seen the plastic partitions up. So those are things that people have been purchasing quite a bit of. As you heard Corey talk earlier about what they're doing at her store, it's a lot of wiping, a lot of sanitizing going on. And so something to consider is the demand that is out there worldwide right now for supplies is nothing like I've ever seen. It's insane, and trying to source products and bring products in has been a real challenge for us in my industry. So I know that a lot of people have been very particular, or maybe they're loosening up a little bit, but they want name brand. They want to see Lysol or Clorox on the bottle. A lot of right now, that's not necessarily reality. And if you go to any store right now, you're not seeing anything that says Lysol or Clorox available for purchase. So that's when it becomes important that you look at what the ingredients are in what you're purchasing. So when you're looking at wipes, if they are alcohol wipes, if they have somewhere between 60 and 90% alcohol, they will be effective. And if you have an alcohol base cleaner, that's something that you can use on a keyboard that won't damage your keyboard. Versus a lot of other disinfectants that are water-based. Water and electronics don't mix, so it's careful to know with what you're working with and what you're using as you're sanitizing and disinfecting. Other things we're recommending is it sounds weird, but sanitizer is not hard to get right now. What's hard to get is the bottles you put sanitizer in. So save your soap bottles, your hand sanitizer bottles, and you can buy bulk refills. But right now, one of the hardest things to get is pumps that you would pump the sanitizer out with, and any bottles smaller than a gallon size. So those are some things to consider. Don't just throw them away, save them, because we don't know where the demand is going. I know a lot of people are wanting touch-free Purell dispensers and touch-free sanitizer dispensers. Purell, who is owned by Gojo, if you're familiar with soap, Gojo, Purell, right now their entire allocation and entire manufacturing efforts are all being allocated to healthcare. So a lot of businesses and a lot of my customers and our customers have the Purell dispensers. The problem is right now we can't get the cartridges to refill those dispensers because it's all being allocated to healthcare. So that's where, again, we kind of have to pivot into what you use and what you don't use. If you're using a pump bottle of sanitizer, after you pump it into your hands and wipe your hands off, you're sanitizing whatever you just touched. So the pump bottles are not, it's still effective. You're still doing what you need to do, even though other people have touched it prior. You're sanitizing and killing what you just touched. But going forward, I think it's good to consider in restrooms and in your lobbies or front entrances, touch-free dispensers and maybe a stand. But again, right now, the supply for those are very, very limited worldwide. So it's not easy to get any of that stuff. Gloves and masks, again, I think, a lot of you have noticed and seen if you've been to Menards or Costco or, read the news that, there are a lot of these stores are requiring masks. And people, I think, as they enter, if they don't have a mask, I think people are willing to pay, $1 or $2 for a mask. So if you have them available for customers, if you want to require them, or for your employees, I don't think people have given too much pushback on buying a mask, unless they're just opposed to wearing a mask.
Mike, we got a couple of questions here. Maybe we'll just try to address some of those. So a couple of questions about what City Supplies has. Do you have signage, like you mentioned? Are you able to get signage for businesses? Okay.
Yeah.
And the touchless hand sanitizer dispenser, do you guys sell those?
We do sell them, but right now we have a few in stock, but we have no cartridges to refill them with. We could refill them with non-antibacterial or antimicrobial soaps, but as far as touchless sanitizer dispensers, we have those, but we don't have the cartridges to refill them with.
And the forehead thermometers, do you guys do those as well?
We do. So we took a pre-order. We have pre-orders on our website for those. Those are supposed to arrive into us tomorrow. Okay.
And can you make clear the difference between sanitizer and disinfectant? I've seen some establishments putting maybe not the highest quality hand sanitizer out.
It's basically it's kind of the same thing. But the hand sanitizer is when there became a shortage of sanitizer, everybody kind of tried to engineer their own. And so there's been some out there that have been used with too much alcohol, and it's tearing people's hands up. So it's important to know what you're putting out there, and it's important to know where you're getting it from. The recommended use for sanitizer is at least 65% alcohol based. So if you're getting up into higher levels, into the 90%, 90% alcohol, that's going to tear your hands up. So I would say keep it between 65 and 80 on the hand sanitizer percent alcohol.
And any thoughts on fan usage or keeping your doors propped open?
That I haven't heard anything about, and I haven't really seen anything from any of my associations. They haven't put anything out about that.
Okay. I think the other thing you mentioned too was that a 30-day supply is what people should keep on hand. And you're basing that based on the number of customers or people that they see in during those 30 days. Is that kind of the measurement?
Correct. Yeah. That, while it's definitely important to make sure your customers are safe, obviously as, business owners or, managers, it's key to keep your employees safe. So, what are your employees' needs going to be, for the next 30 days, and can you supply them with what they need? Those are the people that you focus on, and then they can, stay safe, stay healthy, and then, they're able to communicate with your customers coming in, what the requirements are at your place.
Perfect. And I know we talked a little bit about this with Corey and Patty too, but the retail stores that have merchandise that people come in and want to touch before they buy, which is something that was normal for us and maybe not so much. Do you have any recommendations or thoughts on, I think some of the retail stores talked about steamers. Do they steam their clothes? Does that get rid of it? Jewelry is another big one that people are wondering, like, what do we do if a customer touches that?
So depending upon what type of disinfectant or sanitizer you have, so if you have something that's like I mentioned earlier, like a quaternary ammonia based, that is not something you'd want to use on a fabric. So I wouldn't say spray that on there. Alcohol wipes would be safe to use on a clothing or on cloth. If that was something they were looking to, hangers, again, you could, on a hanger, on a hard surface, you can use pretty much any disinfectant or sanitizer that you have. On cloths, you need to be careful with what you're using for that. As far as the 7 days, I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about the virus to say whether would be sufficient or overkill, but it seems like a good practice. But you definitely definitely want to be careful with what you're using for a chemical, especially on cloth or things like that. But hard surfaces, most chemicals are safe. Alcohol wipes are pretty much safe on everything.
Okay, and thoughts on bleach water for disinfecting, and then the proper ratio for that?
Bleach water definitely works for disinfecting. Again, you have to be careful with what surfaces you're using that on. I would say that's definitely more of a hard surface type deal. And obviously we all know what bleach does, so you got to be careful. One of the things that was put out in this that I didn't really go into is they recommend stainless steel tables, something that's easy like that, that's bleach safe for wiping down and cleaning. As far as the ratios, I believe a bleach is a 2-to-1 ratio. So I think it's 2 ounces of water to 1 ounce of bleach. But I can double check that. And also I can, the resource for reopening that our association put out, I am going to have that put up on our website later today. So this will be something that people can go to and take a look through and kind of see what our association is putting out as far as recommendations for reopening of businesses.
Okay, so we got about 30 seconds to answer 3 quick questions. We'll see what we do. Recommendations on an association or resource for additional information. I think you kind of just answered that you're going to have something on your website.
Yep.
Any other quick thoughts there?
No, I'll put this out there. It's going to talk about the resources, and then it's going to give an idea of products and things that people can look for.
Perfect. Are all your forehead thermometers spoken for and pre-orders?
No, we still have some available.
Perfect. And then the last quick one is a selfish one for me. So I've been hearing a lot of things about the plastic gloves that maybe they actually transmit things more than they're actually protecting. Any quick thoughts on wearing plastic gloves?
So the gloves are much like when you go to the doctor. The doctor wears the gloves when they do their examination or do whatever, and then they take them off immediately. So if you want to prevent spread and you're using gloves, you have to change out gloves frequently.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna keep rolling. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you being here and sharing your
Thank you.
knowledge. Okay, next we are going to roll into restaurant considerations. So we have two gentlemen joining us today. Lee is from Ruth's Chris Steakhouse here in the Middleton location, as well as Gary George, who is the Director of Operations for Jersey Mike's through our local office here, also in Greenway Station in Middleton. So with that, I would love to turn it over to you guys. They're going to kind of tag team this, so from different restaurant perspectives, and walk through some of these questions that we have for them. So gentlemen, if you'd like to take yourselves off mute, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay. Well, hello. Can everybody hear me?
We can. Hi.
All right. Hi, this is Lee Drapp, General Manager at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Good morning, everyone. Okay, well, is Gary there too?
I sure am. Good morning.
Right. Good morning. I guess I'll read the first question there. When is the right time to reopen, and when will people come? Well, those are great questions. We've really given it some thought, and although we have the date of the 26th as being an opening date, I really wanted to kind of take another week and just kind of sort things out, get organized, make sure we're doing things in the right format, the best that we can. I don't know how to really describe the right format, but just trying to take all the tools and information provided from different resources and putting it all out there. We're going to open up on June 1st, which is a Monday. So that's our official day for us at Ruth's Chris. And when will people come? I don't know. I think people are excited to get out. I think they're cautious, concerned, and those feelings are all natural and understanding. So I think that it's going to be a process, and we're excited, and we want to make sure that when they do come, that they're comfortable in the environment that we provide here at our restaurant for sure. And I think we'll do a good job of that.
I echo all of that. And I think the right time to reopen is, not only when the local governments say you can, but when you're able to provide that safe environment for not only your customers, but all of your employees as well. They need to, your employees who are on the front line need to feel safe in their environment as well. So if you can't, as an operator, say, I'm providing a safe environment, then you're not ready to reopen. We've had the luxury of not having to close. We've been able to operate on curbside takeout, pickup, third party, and been surviving well on that. When will people come? When they feel safe. Just because we're able to open up and welcome people back in, doesn't mean they will come. They need to feel safe and confident in your restaurant. There's no other way to put it. If they see something that makes them feel not safe, they're not going to come. If there's words out there or social media that says this place isn't doing the right thing, they're not going to come. So it's on us to make sure that we are taking all the proper precautions and following the local guidelines for reopening.
Perfect. Gary, do you want to start with that next one? Ideas for revamping setup or signage that you guys have implemented?
Yeah, so, currently we're in a takeout only model. And so we've re-engineered the restaurant to accommodate that. We're seeing in Middleton specifically about 65 to 70% of our business is coming through our printer, which means it's being ordered online or via third party or via the Jersey Mike's apps. There's the plug. But since nobody's allowed to dine in, we've turned our dining room into a giant pickup station. when we're able to reopen, we think we're going to start with outside dining first, and kind of see what happens. There's no recipe right now for how many people are actually going to want to sit in, and we'll add tables as possible, staying within the guidelines, of course. And then on the signage piece, this is one that's really intriguing, because everybody's going to want to put up all these signs for their rules and regulations and what their customers should do and things like that. And then you end up with a window full of signs that after the first couple, people are going to lose interest and not read them. I think you have to be very careful on what you put up. My recommendation is pick 3 that are important and put those up, versus having 17 different signs that say, everything you want to spew out to people. So stick with what's important to you. Put them all up, take one down, edit, if you will. So I think just pick the ones that are important, especially on your occupancy limits. And if you are requiring masks of your customers, then that might be important. Also, if you're adjusting your hours of operation, I think those are the important ones to communicate. Obviously, creating those signs for safe social distancing is important. We have floor mats down in our dining rooms that are at 6 feet apart, so when people are waiting. And then also, if we exceed our occupancy, we ask people to wait outside. So those are my thoughts on setup and signage.
Perfect. We'll toss it back to you, Lee, for the same question.
Sure, thanks. Well, as far as revamping the restaurant, of course, we're going to have to take some tables out and give that separation. There's many things as far as, our setup, and I don't know if that was a question later, but, our instead of, we usually have our silverware on the table. We're going to have that now in roll-ups. Our menus are going to be different. The bar stools are going to be separated a little bit as well. We're definitely doing a lot of things to revamp the setup. But I think one of the things I thought about was with the suggested signage. And as I listened to Gary too, I found on the Wisconsin Restaurant Association a great tool where it's kind of a poster. And I'm really going to just copy that over and make a large easel size of that. And something that people can, when they walk in immediately, they see. And it says our promise to you. And it really goes over all those guidelines that we all are aware of, but just keeps it in detail. And it also, it reiterates on another section, your promise to us. So it reminds our guests that we're, of course, we're all in this together. We're a community, and we all have to be responsible to it. And I think that's just going to be a good focus point to take away that distraction that Gary speaks of having signs all over the place. I think just one poster, people walk in. People, coronavirus pandemic isn't something new to anybody unless they've been living somewhere where I can't imagine. So everybody has a good idea and concern walking in, from our guests to our staff. So that sign's going to really help us all to just know that we're all involved with it together.
And Lee, maybe we'll just jump to that question 3 here, about occupancy limits and restaurant hours. And, you don't necessarily know how long someone's going to be in the dining room, how long it's going to take them to eat. Any thoughts to considerations around that stuff?
Well, I think for us, the main control is the bar, because people do stay and come and go. In a dining experience, there is kind of a guideline there that's relatively consistent, although not 100%. We always just have to go on the safe side, and we've got the first 2 weeks of being 25%, and we just have to really guide that and watch that and monitor that. Are you going to hit 25 exactly in this particular business? I hope that we can, but again, we'll probably stay on the safe side and be less than. But I think as long as we're aware, we'll be in a good place.
And Lee, this question is for you. What's the largest table you'll have, and how many people in a party will you allow?
Well, right now, to my understanding, you can only have 6 people to a table. But you know, these things change, but I think that going into our opening date, and I think not just our restaurant, I think all restaurants will be held to that accountability.
Okay, perfect. Gary, any thoughts on those same topics?
No, I mean, Lee's absolutely right. Right now, the guidance is no parties larger than 6. So, you know, it's going to be tough to try to explain that to some people, because while we are intimately familiar with the details of every guidance that's been put out there, our customers may not. You know, they haven't done the due diligence, and it's our job to do that for them. So when we have, you know, a big party or a group that comes in, you know, right now they can't stay anyway, but once we're reopened, they'll have to be separated.
Okay. And then we'll go to, you know, just considerations for staff, I just should say, diners, I guess. Sorry, I didn't change that. You know, what are you guys doing with PPE or health checks for staff, requiring masks, anything around that?
We are requiring masks for all of our employees as a company nationwide. It's been mandated that all employees wear masks while working. That has presented its own set of challenges that we didn't expect. We're having to give much more frequent breaks because it's just uncomfortable when working and talking for long periods of time. We're finding we need to give about a 5 to 10 minute break every hour. So we're finding that, and our employees appreciate that, just as a break from the mask. What we have found is our customers appreciate that as well. We get nailed to the cross, if you will, if someone's not wearing a mask. At least in the beginning we were. So it's kind of expected, I feel like it's kind of expected from customers that our staff is wearing masks because they're handling their food. We also have our restaurant set up to where at no time are any of our employees within 6 feet of any customer either. But it's just kind of the perception on masks. We don't require, in Wisconsin, we don't require customers to wear masks. In our Illinois store we do, but that's not relevant. But what we've seen is currently about 90% of customers are coming in with masks. So we have, that's a good thing as well. When we see people not wearing them, it's typically they're running in to pick up their order and leave. So the contact and social distancing is always enforced. So that's where we're at on masks. PPE, you know, such as gloves. We've always required when handling food that people wear gloves. You know, one of the things we have done a little bit differently is the few people who are paying with cash now, is we've implemented a system where we have them put it into a pan. And so we're minimizing the hand contact there, and passing change back that way as well. With health checks, we are asking our employees daily, you know, do they have any of the top symptoms? Have they had a fever? Are they coughing, shortness of breath, loss of sense of smell or taste? And we're documenting that. We have a quick checklist for that daily. And if someone is reporting any of those symptoms, we are taking further documentation and excluding them for the required times, which currently is 72 hours of symptom-free and 10 days from set of the onset of any symptoms. So if someone has a fever, they're out for 10 days. And that's very important with keeping your employees feeling safe too, that you're doing the right things there.
Great. And then Lee, back to you with that same question.
Sure. We've gone over, of course, ours is a little bit different than Gary's. We do
Sure.
have more of a closer contact to our tables when we're serving our guests. And so we've taken precaution to have a procedure in the fact that when we are serving food, we will wear white gloves when we pick up from our guests soiled food or food that they've used or plates. Then utensils and things we will take with black gloves, and different employees will do different things. We're minimizing, we do a lot of swarm service, a lot of people are in hand on the guest experience. So we're trying to minimize that as well. In addition, of course, everyone's gonna have a mask as well. I did talk a little bit about the table setups themselves. Instead of having the silverware open on the table, we'll have roll-ups, and the salt and pepper shakers and the table lamps. After each guest has completed their experience, those will be taken away, and new sanitized salt and pepper shakers and table lamps will be brought to the table as well, with clean roll-ups and sanitized menus as well. The hostess staff, we will have most of our doors. We have a vestibule, so we have 2 sets of double doors. So the second set will be automatically just held open, and then we'll try to greet our guests at the front of the doors to minimize any table touching or door touching, excuse me. And then also the bathroom checks will be every half hour with sanitation from the toilet handle to the doorways and that nature, as well as the front door. Let me just try to think of anything else there. I guess that's kind of the things I can think of, at least right now.
Sure, and like kind of along those same lines, any additional cleaning protocols, especially the menus. I think some of the other restaurants are curious. If you had paper, are you going to plastic? Do you wipe them down? Are you having people look on their phone to order?
Sure. Well, I think those are great questions. So as far as the menu, we are actually revising our menu, minimizing it just a little bit, but especially areas like the desserts. We usually have 8 to 10 desserts at hand. We're only going to have 3 desserts. And some of that is not just safety, but just because of our expectation that things will be a little bit slower. And we don't want to prep all this because we have an extensive menu, all these items as well, and have that kind of loss as well. But we are going to have a menu that's at the table. Usually we bring, the guests to the table. We have a napkin we put in their lap. None of that kind of interaction will happen. And then they'll have the menu, and after every experience, we will sanitize them. But they're going to be laminated menus as opposed to our paper booked menu that we normally have. And the wine list will be the same. Our bar menu will be the same. So it's quite an expense, quite a lot of details we're going through to try to accommodate and have our guests feel safety, for sure.
Perfect. And Gary, I'll shoot it back to you. And one question, if you can address, is thoughts on how to handle self-service drink stations when you reopen.
I was afraid this question would come up. Because right now there's no direction on whether we're allowed to open them up or not. And I've been trying to find that out since the phased opening was put back in. They've been very clear on no self-serve beverages, but they haven't addressed it in the reopening phase. I am going to put in a I've got a contact at the health department, like we all do, for more guidance on that once we hit that phase. I'm sure they're overwhelmed as well with everything that's going on. So we've got an email out, and we'll follow up with a phone call. Kristen, I'd be happy to provide that information to you once I get it, and you can distribute it as you see fit.
We'd love to do that.
But currently, there is no guidance. It's kind of buried in way down on the list that there's no self-dispensing in any of the phases. But I don't believe that is with the spirit of fountain drinks. Just the way it was written, it doesn't seem like it applies to that. So we need guidance from the health department on that one. I'm sure once we start to enter that phase 1 at 25%, that the restrictions on the fountain drinks will be released and we can use them again, because that's a big part of our business. We just need to make sure that, you know, we are sanitizing frequently, wiping down every half hour, and also making sure we do stop, we call it a stop, drop, and roll, where we're disinfecting the restaurant every 2 hours as well, going above and beyond the normal sanitation procedures. So it is, you know, pardon the pun here, but it's a touchy subject. And we have to just, whatever the guidelines are is what they are. If they say we can't open them, then we can't open them. We have the luxury of having bottled drinks, and I know for full service, they are allowed to, from what I've read, as long as the employees refill the drinks and get them a new glass every time. So it's a little bit different on the full service side than it is on the fast casual side.
Kristen, I wanted to share a quick comment that I maybe forgot to, was in regards to safety. And I know it was brought up a little bit there by Gary as well, but we will every day take all of our staff members' temperature. And if they don't if they have a temperature higher than 98.6, they will be returned or asked to leave immediately. And then they will have to come back with doctor information saying it's safe for them to work, but they will automatically be asked to leave for 72 hours at the point of having a high temperature. And then we have to get security, just knowing that they don't have coronavirus, of course, which would prolongate the 72-hour time as well.
Perfect. Okay, I do want to move into just let's see, time check. We got a couple minutes here, but managing that curbside, or do you guys expect, or Gary, probably more for you, do you expect still high volumes of carry out? Anything to do with exceptions for curbside dining, or things to think about if people didn't have outside dining before? Anything on those realms?
With curbside and takeout, we expect it to still be extremely high. Like I said, we're seeing between 65 and 70% of our traffic that way versus just walk-in right now. Be organized, review your third party or takeout procedures with your staff. Seal bags, as crazy as it sounds, people appreciate that nobody else can get into their bag. Also, when considering your takeout, excuse me, make sure you include everything that the customer's going to need to order, or they're going to need to eat. Forks, knives, napkins, whatever you would normally provide in the restaurant. Don't assume it's just going to their house, and you never assume the worst when you're sending an order out. You want to try to create an experience that's as close to being in your restaurant as possible. So include everything. Don't forget that stuff. There's nothing worse than getting an order and not having a fork or a spoon if you're having a soup kind of thing. Just make sure that they have everything they need and try to provide still the best experience, even though it might be outside of your restaurant, because you don't have a chance to recover. If there's something wrong, you don't have the chance to recover that customer, and you can't read their face. They likely won't tell you if something is wrong unless it's really wrong. So get it right and review those procedures with your staff, and make sure for takeout and third party, or however you do your business, always have a point person assigned. Don't have all of your staff involved in all of those orders. Have somebody in charge of them. That way there's one point of contact who can organize everything and know what the times are, and know what volume is coming that way as well.
Perfect. And then maybe Lee, back to you. Do you guys, once you do open, are you going to do carry out, or are you just going to stick with dine in?
Well, you may not know this, but we have been open for carry out.
Oh yeah,
Wednesday,
sorry.
Yep.
I apologize.
Nope. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And tonight, I might add to you that tonight we are donating 100% of our proceeds to the Middleton Educational Foundation for people for hygiene and food. About 100% of our takeout today. So we definitely will be busy today.
Amazing.
But with that being said, you know what, we're not a takeout destination, but we've done it because of the situation. We've had to adjust a little bit. Really wanted to just keep ourselves relevant and be out in the community a little bit. All those things Gary says, I've learned sometimes the hard way of forgetting some of those simplicities of takeout, but overall our staff's done a good job. And I do expect that that business will continue. It'll maybe dismise a little bit, but I think it'll continue just because people aren't going to be feeling safe to come in yet, you know. So hopefully we'll just be able to get a little bit of that takeout business still too.
And you guys are doing restaurant week, right? As well?
You mean the kind of this revised restaurant week?
The Madison, yeah, the to go.
I didn't do that. I thought it was a little confusing for us. It just, yeah.
Not
I didn't.
your model. And then how do
I
people
know
order?
it is. We usually do restaurant week. It's just not that one.
Sure. But how do people order for the fundraiser tonight for the Education Foundation?
Well, you can just call. We take call-in orders. That's how we do our takeout. But the menu is available on Facebook and our website as well. We're filling up hard, but we'd love to have more of you. So, give me a call for sure.
Okay, we've got a few minutes here. Any other comments or things that you'd like to share with the group? Otherwise, I'm gonna also open it up to questions from anyone else in the audience.
Just one last comment on the last point about employees if they don't want to come back yet. I think being a good employer, you have to respect that. You know, they may not feel safe. They may have issues we don't know about, or that we do know about. One of the things, you know, we operate 14 restaurants and have about 220 employees altogether. We've had about 9, I believe, who have self-excluded during the pandemic for either health reasons or other reasons unbeknownst. But we've respected that from day one of the pandemic. And everybody's different and everybody operates under different sets of rules. And they may have a very valid or not valid reason for not wanting to come back to work. And we have to be very respectful of that as employers. I think it's important that we keep in good communication with our employees, especially if you're reopening, that just make them aware of everything that you're doing to keep them safe, and will also help at home. You know, the practices that we're taking in the restaurants apply to everyday life as well. So I think it's given people a lot of confidence in how to handle this pandemic.
Perfect. And I know, so I think Mike wanted to jump back on with one other final thought here. So Mike, if you want to do that, go ahead.
Yeah, one other thought, and this is just has kind of come from some people that we've been talking to and some of our customers, not necessarily in the retail setting, but in other settings, is the supplies that you are buying or putting in your establishment, the sanitizer bottles, toilet paper, disinfecting wipes, things like that. Unfortunately, people are walking off with them because they're hard to find, and right now, due to lack of supplies, they're getting more expensive, and in the ways people are having to bring them in country or bring them into house, things are getting more expensive. So I would say just keep an eye on your sanitizing supplies, and it's like weird as it sounds, toilet paper, paper towels, disinfectants, things like that. Just it's unfortunate reality that we're facing right now, and we're hearing that from a lot of our customers. So that was my final thought.
Thank you. Just we'll keep the lines open here for a little bit, but I do want to just say one huge final thank you to all of you guys for joining, and especially to our speakers today. I know an hour and a half long Zoom meeting seems like a really long time, but I think it really flew by for me, and all of the great information that you guys shared. I just really appreciate you taking time to do this with our group. And then I do want to just plug another event that we're doing later today. Our economic development is today at noon. And we are featuring Dane County Executive Joe Parisi. So he will be on to kind of share a State of the Union on the county and things that they're working on. And we'll have definitely question and answer time with him as well. So if you guys have any other questions, we can hang out for a few minutes. But otherwise, thank you again for stopping by and for sharing and for joining.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kristen, for doing a great setup, by the way. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job on that.